Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Scares. Today we're finishing out our quadrilogy of Fright Night films with the fourth and currently final film in the series. It's called Fright Night 2: The New Blood. First, I want to forewarn anybody that wants to watch this movie. Don't watch it expecting a sequel. Yes, it's called Fright Night 2, and yes, the font of the title is exactly like the 2011 movie, just with an added 2 in there. But this is not a sequel, guys. It's not. It's another remake of the original 1985 film, and it even remakes some of the added elements of the 2011 film, too. How do I know this? Well, I mean, we'll get to that in a second. Just know that the nimbus surrounding this film has a lot of issues. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, nimbus, a cloud, aura, atmosphere, or otherwise surrounding a person or thing. Fright Night 2: The New Blood takes Charlie Brewster to the heart of Romania, the town where it's said that Count Dracula himself lived. There, he meets super hot Professor Jerry Dandridge, who just so happens to be a vampire that needs to drink the blood of other women in order to retain her youth. There's even been rumors floating around the city that Dracula was actually a woman, which begs the question, is Jerry Dandridge actually Dracula? Okay, so this movie has problems galore. I'm not gonna dispute that. I want to first explain how this movie is not a sequel before I talk about anything that's good or bad. First of all, Charlie makes no mention of having previously killed a vampire named Jerry Dandridge, as he now hunts for another vampire named Jerry Dandridge, who has now apparently had a gender change. Characters need convinced again that vampires are real, having no memory of encountering them previously. Peter Vincent is no longer a paranormal stage magician on the Las Vegas Strip, but now he's a paranormal reality show host like seen in Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters. And again, he has no memory of previously meeting Charlie or that vampires are real either. The film doesn't even try to back up the claim that the movie is called Fright Night 2. But as you watch the film, it's hard to dispute that it's following the same plot progression as the 1985 and 2011 films. It makes very obvious nods to those two films while also kind of doing its own thing at the same time, meaning it's a remake, or more specifically speaking, it's a retelling. In general, people don't like remakes, and I doubt they like remakes of remakes, and that's essentially what this film was, 2 years after the first remake. And you can see that there's issues here, but guess what? I liked some of the stuff here, so let's talk about that. One of the core complaints that I had about the 2011 Fright Night film was that instead of focusing so much on practical effects when it came down to makeup and gore, they did a lot of CGI stuff. And for me, that was wildly disappointing. I liked the movie as a general rule, but I felt like the practical effects was partially what gave this series its identity. You knew you were watching one of these movies just based on how much focus they went with practical effects. And it was not in the 2011 movie, but it was in this one. While I wouldn't say that the work put in the practical effects was as crazy as maybe the first two movies, it was better than the 2011 movie, bar none. And that part of this film felt like Fright Night. I also liked whenever the film did introduce newer, somewhat original takes on the vampires themselves. This was the first film to kind of suggest that they drink blood to retain their youth. This Jerry Dandridge gets really old really fast, and so she bathes in the blood of others, and all the imagery associated with that was actually pretty good, especially with the lighting and color choices. During this scene, Charlie is hiding out in a coffin watching everything unfold, and the golden light showing only on his eyes is really, really good. It was obviously reminiscent to Anton Yelchin's character hiding out in a closet, seeing Colin Farrell basically do the same exact thing, but just looking at the visuals here, this was better shot. There's also some really interesting editing choices in this movie that if you have problems with epilepsy, I'd suggest avoiding it altogether, because the vampire uses this like sonar ability. I'm not sure if that's the right term for it, but everybody's in the dark and the vampire is using some kind of ability to see in the dark, and basically what they're doing is overexposing the shot and then making it flash on and off over and over again while these people are running for their lives. And the effect of it is interesting because it looks kind of like still images in a flipbook, and I think it's effective. I would just highly suggest that if you have epilepsy, avoid it, because I was watching this at night and the thing would be flashing all over the place really brightly, and if you were outside my house, it would look like somebody was taking a bunch of pictures with the flash on. That's how bright it was. One last thing I want to talk about the positives is that the film has a cartoon segment in there. Some will like this, some won't. To me, I felt like it was a part of the vision of the director to include it, and because of that, it substantially distinguished this film once again for the visuals. But the visuals and the cinematography off often clash in this film. Visuals are really important for specific scenes to work the way that you want them to work, like practical effects, makeup, also like that flashing scene, like the light and color shining on Charlie's face, stuff like that. Cinematography, on the other hand, is more of a constant, and it's one of the most important aspects of a film when you want it to feel, well, cinematic. This film had some poor cinematography choices. A lot of it felt auto-white balance. The other movies in the series have felt more like movies, more or less, with a serious undertone. This felt like a really, really cheap straight-to-video, misguided garbage heap with some serious problems with false advertising. And I would not blame you if you hate this movie. I wouldn't. It makes sense. I'm just able to pick it apart piece by piece and appreciate some of the things that they did do better than even the 2011 film, like the practical effects. Let's go ahead and break down my final score. From an unbiased, technical level, I can definitely appreciate what they were able to do with some of the visuals. I'm talking about lighting, I'm talking about colors, I'm talking about practical effects, costume, makeup stuff, all that brought it back to the days of the first two movies, something missing in the 2011 film. But its unoriginality of trying to do a remake when we just had one, and having a lot of false advertising with the title claiming that it's a sequel when it's really not, is not doing the movie any favors. That score is 66%, and my bias score pretty much agrees with that exactly at 66% because it was better than I thought it would ever be. I enjoyed certain aspects, but it still has a lot of issues. So averaging out the two scores together, we obviously come down to the rating of 66%. 66 out of 100 possible stars, or a D-letter grade. Yes. 6666666. Yes. As expected, this is my lowest scored film in the franchise. It was always destined to kind of be that because it doesn't even seem like they took themselves seriously. But it was a lot better than I thought it would be because it did make a lot of interesting choices and changes, most of which I think worked out for the better. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on Fright Night 2 if you've seen it. Do you think it's a giant waste of time, or are there actually things in here that you can appreciate about it? Let me know. As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this review, because there's always more like it coming out each and every single day. Hit the subscribe button and bell to be notified when I come out with my ranking video covering every movie that I saw this month. That should be coming out probably tomorrow. And until then, guys, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us.